beginning of the assessment. I love seeing a full house. Please welcome, my name is Tommy Stackley, I'm a film critic. Please welcome our amazing guests, Elizabeth Olsen, Alicia Vikander, and director Fleur Fortune. For being here. I would love to start with you, Fleur. Please tell us a little bit about your inspiration behind this. How did this screenplay find its way to you? And this is your filmmaking debut. Why was this the right project to make your debut?
So I was working on the sci-fi project that was also involving a couple that I wrote in French. And a friend of mine met with Stephen Wood, English producer, who had like the script of the assessment, and he was looking for a woman director, and my friend said, I think you should meet with Fleur, because I was already working in that universe, and I was struggling a lot to have kids, so I was going through tests that I felt was a bit absurd for years with IVF and adoption meetings, and so when I first read the script, I could really understand like the character of Vikander and Orion, and I thought I could see emotionally how I could go through the story with him.
And tell us a little bit about your maybe attachment to the sci-fi genre. This is not a very traditional sci-fi movie. But it still has a lot of brilliant genre elements. So what is your affection to that world exactly?
I think it comes from when I was a kid. My family come from the south of France. They are not at all into cinema, but I'm the last of four. And when my parents would go out at night, I didn't have I was like 11 or something. I was not allowed to, but I would sneak out and watch TV on the cable, like channels I was not supposed to see. And I was watching Twin Peaks. and at the moment I became like such a huge fan of David Lynch. And even though I was very young, I mean the universe he was creating, I was like, that's crazy. I think it's more the surreal element that I like. Not necessarily the sci-fi, it can be different genre, but the idea that you can create a world that is yours, your fantasy, I don't know. So it was amazing.
Thank you. And Elizabeth, I would love to bring you in next. Please tell us a little bit about what were you excited about to explore through Mia, this determined, very pragmatic, very smart woman. What attracted you to this project at first?
The story as a whole was something I really enjoyed reading this script. I think I didn't know where it was going to go. I didn't know much about it other than a very thin log line. So when things become more absurd and the rules of this assessment or game that they're playing starts to spiral out of control, I found it to be an exciting tone to play around in. I think that was the first thing I was drawn to with the script. And then I really loved the elegance of what near future sci-fi place this was, because I think what's so beautiful about like a sci-fi genre, or just something that just feels slightly outside of our own world, is I think as audiences we're almost able to examine themes in our own life and existence without trying to compare hyper-realism to these worlds. And so there's a playfulness, I think, as an actor, you feel like you're given an allowance to be a little bit, a little bit more creative with how you tell a story. And I went on a deep dive watching Fleur's music videos, and I was so, they were all so different from one another, and so uniquely visual, and the faces that she cast in these pieces, and Alicia said so many times they feel more like these amazing short films, not just like a music video. They were just so elegant and visual, and so I was really excited to see her perspective on telling this story. And then of course I have to dive into the character, but I think sometimes you take a story as a whole in a filmmaker, and that's enough for you to then excavate what you need to. Um, and so that was kind of a process of we, had some meetings about, talking about character and adjustments and, goals, and it always was evolving and changing even when we were shooting.
Thank you. And Alicia, I would like to direct the same question to you. Virginia is, of course, the character that takes us on this journey, and we're almost in Mia and Ariel's shoes, just following your lead and then see where you take us. So tell us a little bit about how you approach this character, and how did you build this wide-ranging performance in age and in physicality?
Well, I guess I was on that side of it first, like the audience now, or you guys, when I read the script the first time, and it really was one of the it's quite rare for me to read scripts when I kind of read it as I do with a novel. I kind of was very engaged, and it was a page turner, and I really wondered where this was going, and then reading for that part, it was truly kind of like a mystery. I was trying to figure out who this woman was and what is she actually doing here. Is there any other intentions obviously hidden? So that was what kind of hooked me first. But I would say kind of over the past few years, I think more and more what actually draws me to a project of why I choose it is the people involved. I knew that Elizabeth was involved and attached already, and that was one of the things that I was wow, I could really immediately see her in this role, and I'm such a fan of her work, and I thought that is someone that I would really love to work with. And then I did see all of Fleur's work, and which led us to have a conversation, and I was kind of blown away, to be honest, with confidence, the calm kind of awareness and knowing what kind of film that she wanted to do. And she was immediately be able to describe the kind of vision that she had and what she wanted to tell, and she shared images, and I thought that was kind of bold. She showed me that she didn't really send me texts, she just sent me images of people in oversized suits standing on their heads with their legs on the other side, and I was like, I get that. I was like, yes. And I thought that is just a certain kind of director who can do that, and I just say, you asked me once, we talked about things, and I was like, you got this down. I feel totally cool, and I'm in your hands now. And then you gave me confidence to really feel like I could play this out. And I was definitely quite nervous going into it, and I had all these, ideas, and, I tried to, that was something that I felt, some of the things in the text that inspired me to try and find different ages. I was putting different numbers ahead of each scene, trying to figure out what the physicality might be, or how it might change between different moments of the film. I felt a very rich project, and I think I was, as an actor, very kind of, I did love that it was a genre piece, and knowing that we were all going to get to work very closely together, and I think we had a even though it's kind of strange, we did have a really lovely time shooting this.
Can I follow up on that, both for you and Elizabeth, just building the dynamic between these two characters, Mia and Virginia, because it is a very unique dynamic. It's a very uniquely feminine dynamic too. They almost start as adversaries, but then we realize that they might have interests that are not so different from one another. what was it like for you to tap into that? And especially for you, Elizabeth, how surprising was it for you to kind of follow her performance going to these extreme places?
It was one of the best surprises for me while filming. There are clearly things that are written that Mia feels betrayed in some way by the end of the film, after failing. And I guess I hadn't really thought about how deeply they were going to connect until Alicia and I started having those conversations. I think you were the one who really brought it up initially, and the intimacy of these women really seeing themselves in one another without knowing why, and the kind of transference that happened, where they start to believe the play at some moments, or at least I think Mia gets caught up in it. And then ultimately at the end, I do feel like they make the same decision. It just looks different for both of them, but they ultimately make the same decision to do something that was courageous and terrifying and brave, and building that together. God, I just love working with Alicia so much. And so it was so fun to build that together and figure out our physicalities, and for the three of us to figure out how our faces are in with the composition within a frame. And I don't know, there's just a lot of fun artistic, choices and collaboration that felt very fulfilling.
Alicia, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I mean, my favorite scenes are the ones that I did with Lizzie. I think when watching the film too, it's like the bath scene when she bathes with Virginia. It's one of those moments when I really felt that these two characters felt that unspoken bond that you mentioned. And I think that was when I read the script, I felt that too. There was these like hints of something in the last scene that made me want to try and explore, to see if, because it was clear that obviously the absurdity and the humor and the mystery and the thrilling aspects of this script, that it was on the page, but I was really curious to see if we could like add all of us together some deeper element there, and I think that's something as I don't think it's just a female or woman thing really, but I think there's this aspect of this themes of wanting to have children and things that I myself tried for several years before I had my kids, and I felt like it was this ongoing conversation like deep within myself for years that I kind of in one way hid. I get on with my life, but it was like this yearn and like longing for something, and I think that is so strong. So I definitely know that I did connect with people throughout those years of this kind of hard things that I was battling whilst going on with my life.
Thank you. Fleur, we were talking about obviously this being a genre film, maybe an untraditional sci-fi film. The production design really speaks to that so strongly. It doesn't give us this cliche version of the future. It almost has a 70s aesthetic in lots of ways. So tell us a little bit about how you arrived at these design choices and then this color palette.
I thought it was very important that the house was so important because it's a chamber piece almost, and I didn't want it to be too cold and too blank and too minimal, and I wanted to create a sci-fi element and a future that we haven't seen before, but at the same time that we can relate to, because sometimes I feel like it's too much in the foreground, too complex, too technologic. So I got rid of all the device. That was the first thing, and to have also the character more in the foreground, and then I was looking a lot into things that we know. So then the audience can relate to it even if they haven't seen that before. It feels like something, and I think emotionally the universe is very important to enter the story and what you see. So yeah, there was a lot of retrofuturism in the 70s. After we lost a bit that, so I went into a lot of those references. And then it was scouting with Jan Ulvik, the production designer, seeing like Tenerife, that everything comes from the earth, so all that are elements where you can do glass, concrete. So the story and the fact that there's no forest anymore, no wood, gives you a lot of elements, materials, and everything makes sense little by little. And also the colors. It's primary colors for me like feels like they are childish. So it's when they build the dome, it's like those same colors. So yeah, in a certain way, it's try to it starts to link everything together.
And also, the greenhouse, the concept of it is so beautiful. But on the other hand, Ariel's work is the exact opposite of it. You go from something very analog, something very tactile, to something very conceptual. What went into building those differences between the work of the two characters?
I think the greenhouse for me, it's the universe of Mia that she built like outside of the house. It's her own. I think it's almost as if from the beginning you can see she doesn't know it herself, but she's not part of this world, and she refused to use this very advanced technology. She wants to control, she wants to fix, to touch. Like, she's very wild and so grounded and so human compared to the others in this world. So I wanted her greenhouse to reflect that, even though so when we were discussing with Jan, he was like, oh, maybe and after his details, but she built the rest of the greenhouse from a remain of something. So like we were talking about that, and then for me, Orion, because he had a lack of love from his parents, because you see his mother, like it's scary, and you understand that he was never able to build that connection, and so he feels safe. He has a trauma, so he feels safe in that environment that he can completely control, that he's completely made of AI, where he can play God in a certain way in a universe that is completely empty. So that's why like his universe is completely different, and even though you can see that they love each other, you can see from the start that how different they are, and then you understand better the path they choose in the end.
And Elizabeth and Alicia, what was it like for you to engage with these spaces, to occupy these spaces? And is it challenging as actors to mostly shoot in one location? What was that experience like?
Well, we started in Tenerife, and we shot all of our interiors of the entire film there first. and I think, we were clearly we were talking about like how this is going to be, and there was some quite pivotal like scenes happening, transitions in those scenes where it felt kind of to be able to have to be thrown in there on the first day of shoot was kind of nerve-wracking. So we talked a lot about that, and then it's interesting that you arrive on set and the elements of the nature there and the surroundings and the wind. Literally drove you crazy almost, and then it was actual wildfires happening at that time. So it was just the sky was just black, and so it was interesting. And the kind of the aspect of being there kind of became like this own character of the film that took hold of you, and it was pretty incredible because then obviously we shot the rest of the film on a stage in Germany. And it can be quite tricky for or I can find it hard sometimes to get on a set and be in one place, especially physically indoors and trying to imagine something. But after we had done all those scenes in Tenerife and we were able to bring that with us, that kind of gave us a real muscle and physical and emotional memory of this world that we had kind of, you know, imaginary, like made over there and felt. So that I thought was great, and then the set itself I thought was just very like stunning, and it surprised me. And the one thing that I kind of that gave me a lot was, you know, the kind of 70s retro aspect that you mentioned. It was like these materials and things that were these kind of pockets or like objects of memories of history. It was like little plastic things, few of them that they maybe have picked up on the beach or from different other eras, and it was interesting, and that kind of also then later on gave me this idea of how kind of privileged this couple was in a way, and all these kind of artifacts and the things that they kind of cherished. So no, I mean the sets were incredibly rich.
Thank you. And Elizabeth, do you have anything
You
to
said
add?
that so well, because I do believe that Tenerife filming there, even though it was frustrating, was super informative for us, and I really loved the sets. And you asked about challenges about filming in one place, and I feel like that was something we all three and with, or four rather, with Himesh and the four of us, and along with our DP Magnus, we were all trying to figure out how, and that's really the job of the director, to figure out how to advance the story forward within this space. And I know that you would be very aware of, oh, we've already shot this angle too many times, or this direction, not angle, but like this direction, and how else can we use the space? And, you know, we would find a red hand mirror, and we'll be like, oh, let's put that there, because then it will reflect in the mirror, and, you know, you're always just trying to figure out how to use a space. As it's nice to have those kinds of boundaries sometimes, because it forces you to be really creative within them. I specifically found Arian's office, workplace, to be complicated to film in, because there's no real entrance. There's an entrance, I guess, but it kind of, wherever you exited could have been anything. It's like an infinity space. And so if you wanted to get out, or if you wanted to interact with the space, you kind of felt like you're walking in a circle, which as an actor, sometimes you feel like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing with my body or my hands. I don't even know something to pick up. I don't know what direction am I walking in? And so I found that to be a little maddening and challenging, but also helpful in its own way, because Mia should feel foreign in that space, or uncomfortable in that space. And the greenhouse was actually remarkable. Everything was real. The irrigation system was real. Every single plant was. It was really beautiful. And then we really burnt it all up. And that, to be able to react to that was, I mean, it was heartbreaking. I mean, even, like, let's take out the character stakes, like, the artistry that went into building something that was so beautiful and functioning, and then to just put it up, like, just burn it. While there's actually and we had a fire department with us, but there's actually a wildfire going on miles away that we could see. It was very eerie and strange, and it was incredibly informative to the work, because it was, I mean, how often do you ever get to really react to something that's that real?
I'm wondering, and perhaps as a last question, we can end on a fun note. This is obviously a very tense film, and everybody goes through really vulnerable places emotionally. What were some of the things that you found helpful when the cameras were not rolling, to kind of just allow yourself back to, the real world, and just move away from those vulnerable places and then the difficult things that you had to engage with?
Nice dinners.
we had a really long
great time we've had a lot of like 6-day weeks, but we also, anytime there's an evening that we could, or a day that we could get together, it was just one of those jobs, and they're not all like that.
I mean, I must, like, I like making all types of different films. I don't think there's anyone that I kind of prefer, but making these smaller films, and what it's like this I remember, because most of my close friends, like, none of them are in this industry, and they were the ones that like told me when they came, like, visited me on sets, and they're like, is this like how it is? And they're like, it's like summer camp. And I had never really reflected about it, but it is kind of, because you're all these people who, you know, you leave your family, or you might bring your families, and like life stops and you create this little village and you work really long days, and you know, it's really hard and there's no money, and everyone's just trying to make it work. And that brings a very kind of collective sense of just community. And therefore I feel like these personal connections are often stronger on these smaller independent films, and that's something that, you know, I really kind of enjoy, and I think in that space I feel like my creativity sometimes, you know, gets to expand even further.
Thank you. And Fleur, do you have anything to add on this note?
It's true that you create a little bit a family, and there was also, I think also there was something special because there was like so many problems before.
There were so many problems.
Yeah, like I could do a documentary of the making.
Yeah.
We had this strike.
I think to do a documentary of the whole thing.
There was the strike. We lost the location 10 days before. It was crazy.
We lost a lot of things right before.
How many times did we not make this one?
We lost a DP 10 days before. Since today, I still have my SIM card in my phone, no news.
Yeah.
It was so bad. Then,
And then there's the strikes.
Yeah, the strikes.
And so you gotta wait
starting to spend money, and we don't know if we were going to be able to shoot. We had a waiver at last minute, and we lost the location because some activists launched a YouTube. That's crazy. A YouTube, like they thought we were like building a hotel complex, and they launched a YouTube channel to put pressure on the government, who invented a new law to forbid us to shoot there. And so Jan found a new location in like 2 days, and we have to, anyway, then after we had the storm on the beach.
Oh yeah, then we had a storm that only happens every, like 1
Oh,
week
yes.
every year or something, every 4 years. And that like are the winds and the sands off of Africa, and it was the day that we were supposed to be shooting all the open water swimming, and I'm a terrible swimmer to begin with. Like it was just like it really just, it was so crazy. But you end up laughing about it. I mean, that's what absurdity is supposed to do for, I think, us as people. It's like the more absurd things get, you're kind of like, you gotta figure out a way to laugh here.
Yeah, I think the moment then we started to shoot, it felt like we were like, whoa, this shouldn't be happening. There was so many. So we felt lucky, and then it was very special, the ambience on set. And yeah. So I remember asking like the DP, because it was my first feature, I was like, it's so cool. Like he's always like that. He was like, no. It's not. So that was, yeah, a great creative and even experience.
And the result is this gorgeous film. So thank you so much. I will ask our audience, so sorry, if you could remain in your seats, because there's the next engagement.